The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Luke.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Great crowds were traveling with Jesus, and he turned and addressed them. If anyone comes to me without hating his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Which of you, wishing to construct a tower, does not first sit down and calculate the cost to see if there is enough for its completion? Otherwise, after laying the foundation and finding himself unable to finish the work, the onlookers should laugh at him and say, "This one began to build but did not have the resources to finish." Or what king marching into battle would not first sit down and decide whether with the 10,000 troops he can successfully oppose another king advancing upon him with 20,000 troops? But if not, while he is still far away, he will send a delegation to ask for peace terms. In the same way, any one of you who does not renounce all his possessions cannot be my disciple. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
I once heard the story of a couple whose home was destroyed by a massive fire. Everything they owned burned to the ground. And the husband, after the fire was finally put out, turned to his wife and said, "We can cry for a day, but after that we have to move on. We didn't lose anything in the fire that we are going to take with us to heaven anyway." In that moment, the true character of this man was revealed. They hadn't lost anything they could carry into eternity. Therefore, there is a big difference between reputation and character. Reputation is what people say about you. It can go up and down. It can come and go. But character is who you really are, deep down, before God. And in the end, it's not our reputation that matters, but our character. We may not always have the right opportunities or the timing or the resources to start a business, travel the world, or check off another goal. But we can always work on who we are becoming. Even if someone tries to hold me back, they can't prevent me from becoming more faithful, more courageous, more loyal. Growth in character is simply choosing now who I will be later. Fyodor Dostoevsky once observed that the second half of a person's life is made up of nothing but the habits they formed in the first half. And even if most of us feel like we're already past that halfway point, it's still a good time to begin. A person of character is someone who does the right thing, someone who does what they said they would do. That's what loyalty is about. That's what faithfulness means. Of course, we may never give absolute loyalty to anything less than absolute reality, to anyone or anything less than God Himself. Someone once defined loyalty as a force that conquers time. That is to say, loyalty is what endures through change and transition. How many times have we heard of a married couple who, after many years, say, this is not the same person I married. We have changed. We have grown apart. Of course, that happens. People do change. But loyalty is the force that conquers that change. There was a couple that they met, fell in love, and were married for less than 2 years. And a wife was in a serious car accident. She suffered a significant brain injury. And she is not the same. She does not think the same, speak the same, or act the same. Everything has changed. And yet, she and her husband are still married. That hasn't changed. So once again, loyalty is the force that conquers time, that conquers change, that conquers transition, even dramatic and sudden ones. Today, Jesus speaks not only to the apostles, not only to the disciples, but to the crowds who were following him, who were around him. Maybe they were astonished by his teaching and miracles. But Jesus doesn't say, "Oh, how wonderful that you are here. I am glad so many of you came." Instead, it's almost as if he asks, "But how many of you will remain at the end?" And we know the answer. At the end of our lives, that's the real question. What remains and who do we become? That is loyalty, a force that conquers time. That is its liberation. Because when I've already decided, no matter what happens in a relationship, no matter what happens in my life, there is one question I've never need to ask. Should I stay or should I go? That question has already been answered. It's been decided. It's been settled. What I do get to ask are other questions. How can we make this better? If we have drifted apart, how can we make this work? How can I love the person as we now are, different though we may be? Loyalty means being faithful to a vow, to a promise, even when circumstances shift, even when the cost becomes greater than I expected. And in those moments when I want to change my answer, when I say, "This cost more than I planned, more than I ever thought I could give," that's when the deeper question arises. Who do I want to be? That kind of character is not built only in a big, dramatic moments. It begins in the small ones, in the daily choices, in the promise I keep when something more attractive comes along, in the faithfulness to small commitments that prepares me for great ones. And that is why in today's gospel, Jesus goes even further. He reminds us that loyalty to family and friends has its place, but he himself has the absolute claim on our loyalty. And he gives us examples. Who would build a tower without first sitting down and asking if he has the resources to finish? Who would go into battle without first weighing the cost of 10,000 troops against an army of 20,000? Jesus is clear. Following him is a big decision, and it will cost us. To remain faithful to Christ is to accept that discipleship is costly. Doing the right thing will cost us something. So Jesus says, stop for a moment, think about it. If you choose to follow me with your whole life, know that it will cost your whole life. I found it very interesting and surprising in the book of Divine Renovation. Have you ever noticed that most of ex-Catholics who have joined another community generally join a church that expects more of them than the one they left behind? This seems counterintuitive, especially in the face of a secular critique that is constantly telling us that the key to attracting people to the church is to ask for and expect little. Nevertheless, churches that are healthy and growing are clear about the expectations of members and are not afraid to communicate them. High welcome and high expectation is in fact a more respectful way of responding to people. And we know that no one has been able to model interrelationship between welcoming and expectation more than Jesus. He was the epitome of welcome. Just glance through the Gospels. The outcast shepherds at his birth, the lame, the lepers, the sinners, the tax collectors, the rich, the poor, all received the invitation to come to him. He welcomed the woman at the well, Zacchaeus, Samaritans, Romans, and Gentiles. Even when children interrupted his break, he told the 12 to let them come to him. At the same time, this Jesus was clear about what he expected of those who would follow him. Whoever does not carry the cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. He would go on to exhort the crowds that follow him to sit down first and calculate the cost of being his disciple before choosing to do so. He was the one who could look in the eyes of the rich young man with love and issue an invitation saturated in expectation. Go sell your possessions and give the money to the poor, then come follow me. The expectations of Jesus were not limited to the commitment of becoming his disciple. Once that decision was made, he continued to expect more. He said that from everyone to whom much has been given, even more will be demanded. Jesus has unreasonable expectations of the fig tree, even and curses it for its failure to produce its sweet fruit, even though it was not the season for figs. Clearly, Jesus embraced the values of welcoming and expectation, and so they must be part of the life of the church. At St. Benedict parish, which was the initial model for divine renovation, they speak of the 5 expectations of parishioners and clergy alike. All are expected to worship, to grow, to serve, to connect, and to give. These are 5 pillars of the healthy church. Let's take a closer look at each of them. First, to worship. All of them are displayed on the screen. We gather to celebrate the Eucharist every Sunday. We expect all members of the parish to worship unless they are unable to do so because of illness or travel. It is when we gather on the Lord's Day to be nourished by word and sacrament that we remember who we are and are given food for the journey. The second is to grow. To become a follower of Jesus Christ is to be his disciple. Jesus said, "This is the will of my Father, that you should become my disciples." A disciple literally means one who is learning, not the one who has already learned. We believe that learning and growing are lifelong tasks. When we cease to learn and grow, we cease to be disciples and will experience stagnation in our spiritual lives. We expect every member to commit to at least one program of faith formation each year. To serve. The essence of the Christian life is to serve God and one another. We are called not just to serve individually, but to do so corporately as the church. This way we give witness that the church is the hands and feet of Jesus in the world. We also believe that every parishioner, with our exception, has something to offer, something to do well and can do for the sake of the kingdom of God. We expect every parishioner to serve the parish by being involved in at least one ministry each year. to connect. The church is a community of believers and not simply a collection of individuals who gather for 1 hour a week. Christian community is one in which we are truly accountable to one another and accountable for one another. We expect every parishioner to contribute to the task of building community by seeing themselves as an integral part of the life of the parish and being intentional about reaching out and connecting with others. And the last one, to give. We expect all parishioners to give generously of their financial resources in proportion to what they have received. We give not just meet a few basic needs or to pay the costs of maintaining the church building and a few staff. We give out of gratitude to God, and the more the parish receives, the more we can do for the building up of God's kingdom, the more we can help the poor, the more programs we can run to help others grow. No one is excluded from this. If someone has less, they give less. If someone has more, they give more. This offering, which we make at Sunday Eucharist, is a key part of our worship. Perhaps these expectations may differ in details and depend on the context of the parish. For example, if parish doesn't offer any formation program, she cannot expect anything from parishioners. But those expectations, they also give us a hint what percentage is engaged, disengaged, and actively disengaged. Perhaps these expectations may seem lofty, but as the great artist of Michelangelo once said, the greater danger for most of us is not that our aim is too high and we miss it, but that it is too low and we reach it. In today's second reading from St. Paul's letter to Philemon, we meet Paul, Philemon, and Onesimus. Onesimus was Philemon's slave who ran away, perhaps even stealing from him. That was in times where slavery was taken for granted. In Rome, he met Paul, encountered Christ, was baptized, and became a disciple. Yes, something was unfinished. Philemon still saw Onesimus as his own property. And Paul didn't avoid the difficulty. He sent Onesimus back, not asking Philemon to set him free, but to receive him as someone with a new identity. Receive him no longer as a slave, but as a beloved brother. That is the cost of loyalty. Onesimus had every reason not to return, but he freely went back. Philemon had every reason to reclaim him as property, but Paul insists, because of Jesus, this man is now your brother. True Christian loyalty is not cheap. It demands facing the past, risking conflict, and putting Christ first, even when it costs everything. I heard the story of a man told through prison fellowship. He had built a successful life, a wife, children, career. But one night, drunk and reckless, he struck and killed someone with his car. He drove away. He got away with it. No one ever found out. The victim's family never had justice. They grieved, they longed, they prayed, but the truth remained hidden. Years later, this man encountered Christ. He was baptized. He knew his sins had been forgiven, but he also knew the kind of man he wanted to be. His reputation was intact. No one knew his crime, but he knew his character, and that was what he would be left with. So he did the hardest thing. He spoke with his wife, with his children, with his pastor, and then he went to the police station and turned himself in. He could not give that family their daughter back. He could not undo the damage, but he could give them truth. He could give them justice. He could give them something of peace. He lost a lot, just as Onesimus lost, just as Philemon lost, just as every disciple who remains true to Christ will lose something. But loyalty means keeping the promise, even when it costs. Because no matter what we lose, it is what we are left with that counts. And above all, it is Christ who remains, the one who has made the absolute claim on our loyalty. Jesus Christ, He is the one we are left with, and He is enough. I believe in one God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven